I sorted out a bunch of this silver, and then I said I was going to talk about stripping the plating off of it, and I figured I would give you guys kind of an update as to what I'm doing with that process. So here's my current experiment. I'm using an old power supply out of a computer, which is cool because I have a 3-volt, the red wires are a 5-volt, and then the yellow wires are a 12-volt option and ground. I've got a little spoon in there cooking away, and this is a sodium chloride solution. And I've learned some stuff about how this process works. So apparently during the electrolysis, the chlorine bonds to, the sodium chloride, the chlorine in it bonds to the silver to form silver chloride. And then at that same time or near that, the hydrogen coming off of the spoon from electrolysis bonds to the sodium and creates sodium hydroxide. So over time, as you run this process, the electrolyte becomes basic. So if you add a little hydrochloric acid to it from time to time, it neutralizes the pH, and the sodium hydroxide reforms into sodium chloride, and you can kind of stabilize and reuse your electrolyte. So as you do this, if you do it really fast, if you do it with the 12-volt process, then you get a bit of a problem. So you'll see the pitting on this spoon where it's brass, and you get a lot of that. You get a lot of metal in your electrolyte that you don't really want, which is copper or tin or zinc or whatever's in the brass, or if it's nickel. So to minimize the amount of weight of non-value-added metals in your solution, you can go with a lower voltage, but it takes a lot longer. So I'm still trying to figure out a happy medium there, how many volts, how fast I want it to run, and then how the process looks. But I've been running this pretty much all day, and it looks like the copper, this is a stainless steel cathode, it looks like the copper is kind of bonding to the cathode, and I scrape it off from time to time, and it's settling in the bottom of the jar in what looks like a precipitant there. And I imagine that there's a bunch of silver chloride in that too, so when I'm done, I'll take this out and treat that with hydrochloric acid and hydrogen peroxide to remove the copper, I think. I think that, well, that might affect the silver too. Well, that'll turn the silver into silver chloride, and then when I add water, the silver chloride will drop out, so that'll be alright. This is a little experiment I'm running stripping gold plate. But I'm not ready to talk about that one yet. So, and this over here is where I process the spoon. So all that stuff in the bottom is flaked off silver plating and silver chloride, that once silver chloride is exposed to light, it turns gray or black because it starts out white when it's in the water, and then as it's exposed to UV, the chlorine breaks off of it, and then it's just like elemental silver or silver metal, or at least that's how I understand what's going on, because it changes color. Like, it'll start out white, and then you put it in sunlight, it turns black or brown or gray. And I don't know how pure all this is. I'm just processing a whole bunch so that I can, when I smelt it down, I can get a pretty decent piece to test. I've got a bunch of different pieces of silver spoons. This is some of my finished wasted ones, and you can see you go from really pitted up ones that are very corroded to ones that, like that copper one, finished real nicely. So I'm trying to, the better they come out, the smoother they come out, the less contaminant metals you got in your solution, and the less you have to deal with that later. So ideally, you just stick it in there, the silver turns into silver chloride and falls off, and you have the minimal amount of copper and other contaminants in there. That's the goal anyway. So there's our setup, and as I keep going and figure stuff out, I might give you guys more updates.